And I now want to bring in Evelyn Farkas and Melinda Herring. Evelyn is executive director of the McCain Institute, and Melinda is deputy director for the Atlantic Council. Melinda, I'll start with you. What were some of the takeaways that you had from Zelensky's address to the press just now, and what is ahead for him in addressing Congress tonight?
Thanks for the chance to be here. So I think Zelenskyy is saving the fireworks for Congress. I thought he was pretty mediocre in his statement with Biden. It was pretty good. He really gained a lot of life and momentum in the Q&A, but the actual remarks were pretty staged and pretty humdrum. But he showed a lot of emotion and I think humor and pathos during the Q&A. So I know that he's prepared his address this evening. I thought it was interesting, and Margaret commented on this as well, that he gave his comments with Nancy Pelosi in English. He is not comfortable in English. He is not a fluent English speaker. And you saw him give very broken remarks, but I think that was important to show respect and sort of the honor to Nancy Pelosi. So the best is yet to come.
And Evelyn, I mean, as he is navigating this Congress, a divided Congress, but expected, to face a little resistance within the Republican Party on this, how does he message effectively to the American people of this is a fight worth staying in and investing in, especially, all of the elements that we just described?
Well, I think, Caitlin, one thing that you heard Speaker Pelosi mention, and then also President Zelenskyy, was the word children. And so I think that, he will bring us really to the battlefield, which unfortunately is not just in the trenches, but in the cities, in the apartment buildings, in the maternity wards of Ukraine. I mean, this is a disgusting method of warfare that Vladimir Putin is waging against the Ukrainian people, essentially trying to wipe them out and force them to be refugees, throughout Europe and actually in Russia. So I think that he will try very hard, and I think he will succeed. He's very good at kind of placing you in another setting and drawing on the emotions of the American people to remind them that this is really a humanitarian catastrophe where there are, of course, greater values and interests at stake, including ones that are very much American values and interests.
Hi, it's Christina Ruffini. I'm our foreign affairs correspondent here at CBS, and I'm hanging out with Caitlin for the day. But I wanted to ask either of you, you're talking about him needing to convince the American public, but the harder task perhaps is convincing some of these reticent Republican lawmakers who seem to be very laser focused on domestic politics, local politics, the issues they have to deliver and defend to their constituents back home. So in addition to talking, we heard a lot about him. You mentioned he talked about children. We love our children just like you love our children. We're in this together. He's trying to foment this feeling of solidarity. Does that message change when he has to try to convince these Republican lawmakers? And do you think we'll hear two different tracks in the speech tonight?
So I would just say very quickly, not necessarily, because if you think about J.D. Vance, who was elected to the Senate, or some of the other members from the heartland, we have a lot of Eastern European American constituents, including Ukrainian Americans. And J.D. Vance himself, when he was running for the Senate seat that he won, he had to backpedal because he used some language that indicated that he may not be so supportive of this assistance to Ukraine, and found that there was a hue and a cry in his state against those comments. So I actually think appealing to the American people can help. But of course, you also have to appeal to American values. You have to explain to these new members of Congress that if we don't support Ukraine in this fight, Vladimir Putin will keep on fighting. Eventually, he will challenge NATO, and that will be a lot more expensive and bloody for us if that happens.
And Melinda, I'm curious. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't think the fight within the GOP is actually that hard. The GOP supports Ukraine when it comes to weapons. The real question is about budget support. And budget support is a really unsexy idiom. It's the worst idiom I've ever heard in Washington. And the United States gave $8.5 billion last year to keep Ukraine afloat. And it's money that keeps hospitals open, schools open, the railways open. It keeps Ukraine from being a failed state. And I don't think the Biden administration has done a very good job explaining that to the American people. So I think it's incumbent on President Zelensky tonight to make that emotional connection and say, guys, we really need this money. We need you to prioritize my pensioners and my children above roads in America and schools in America just for a short time. And he is a masterful rhetorician, and he can do it.
And Melinda, we heard the president talk about President Biden, but also President Zelensky talk about the significance of the two of them standing together, side by side, in person. Yes, they've talked over the phone many, many times, but here they are on U.S. soil, commanding the attention of this country, of lawmakers, of everyone at stake here. What kind of message is being sent? And does this move the needle at all when it comes to potential peace talks?
Caitlin, I think Margaret said it well. The United States sets the bar. So, yes, it matters symbolically to have the two leaders of the free world on the same stage right before Christmas. This is the giving season. It's the week of Hanukkah. It's a few days before Christmas. And Biden and Congress are opening the purse and sending more assistance. And we're finally sending patriots. And that's a fantastic thing. And it's going to tell Europe and Israel to send more air defense systems. And they can't come soon enough. What does it mean for negotiations? Nothing. I hate to say it so directly, but more than 80% of Ukrainians say, President Zelensky, don't give an inch. We don't care if it delays the peace process. We don't care if more people die. We want to keep fighting as long as it takes. In order for Ukraine to get a just peace, it must reclaim its lands. An overwhelming majority of the Ukrainian people feel that way very strongly. And President Zelensky represents that opinion. And I don't expect any progress whatsoever on negotiations at all.
All right, Evelyn Farkas and Melinda Herring, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And more Red and Blue is up next. Stay with us.